Good afternoon. Welcome to the Federal Bar Association's annual Raykow Luncheon and annual meeting of the Historical Society for the Eastern District of Michigan. We have a full program for everyone here today. The first part of our program will be conferring the Raykow scholarships on 5 students from the 5 Michigan law schools. We will then move to the presentation of the Barbara Rahm Award for Bankruptcy Excellence. And then after that, we will have the annual meeting of the Historical Society, at which Marilyn Kelly, the Honorable Marilyn Kelly, will be our keynote speaker. I would like to begin today, as we always do, by recognizing our judicial officers in attendance, and I would ask that you please hold your applause until the end. Chief Judge Gerald Brosen, Judge Avern Cohn, Judge Patrick Duggan, Judge Arthur Tarnow, Judge George Stee, Judge Mary Ann Battani, Judge Mark Goldsmith, Judge Gershwin Drain, Judge Terrence Berg, Chief Bankruptcy Judge Philip Shefferly, Judge Walter Shapiro, Judge Stephen Rhodes, Judge Marcy McIver, Executive Magistrate Judge Stephen Whalen, Magistrate Judge Paul Comavis, and Magistrate Judge Mona Mazu. Please join me in a round of applause for our judicial officers. We at the FBA would like to thank the judicial officers for the generous donation that they have given to the FBA recently to fund our luncheon series again this year. We are truly grateful for that. We are also grateful to each one of the 43 sponsor firms listed in your program, which is a record this year in terms of the number of firms that have sponsored the Federal Bar Luncheon program. So we are grateful to each and every one of those firms. Before we dive into the program today, I wanted to note with a heavy heart the passing of our immediate past president of the Federal Bar Association, Michael Lee. Michael passed away on November 4th of this year at the age of 53. I know many people in this room knew Michael well. He was a true gentleman and a true leader and set an example for all of us at the Federal Bar Association to follow. In addition to his service to the Federal Bar Association, Michael was involved heavily in the Detroit Urban League. He was a past chairman of the Board of Trustees of the National Urban League. He was heavily involved in the Oakland County Bar Foundation. He had a very successful law practice. In 2013, Michigan Lawyers Weekly named him as one of the Lawyers of the Year. His courtroom skills were described as masterful and always well prepared. And in addition to all of that, he was a mentor to many young people around town. It's a dramatic understatement to say that Michael Lee will be missed. And in light of all of Michael's service to the Federal Bar Association and to the court, I would ask that you join me in a moment of silence to honor Michael Lee. Thank you. Because Michael was a mentor to so many young students around town, I know that as Federal Bar President, he enjoyed nothing more than the presentation of the Raykow Scholarships. Here to present the Raykow Scholarships once again this year is Ed Kronk. Ed is a past president of the Federal Bar Association, and he is also a trustee for the Federal Bar Foundation. Please join me in a round of applause to welcome Ed Kronk.
Thank you, Tom, and let me add my welcome to you to this Raykow scholarship portion of the program. For the past 45 years, going back to 1969, the Federal Bar Foundation of Detroit has administered the Edward A. Raykow Scholarship Fund. The foundation awards an annual scholarship to a student from each accredited Michigan law school who demonstrates outstanding scholarly achievement in securities law, corporations, or business law as determined by the dean of the law school. The scholarship fund is named in honor of the late Edward Raykow, whose contributions to the FBA are highlighted in your program, and I suggest you have a look at those. The current trustees of the foundation, who are all past presidents of the Eastern District of Michigan chapter of the FBA, are Julia Karoff, Geneva Holliday, Bob Forrest, Dennis Clark, and myself. The trustees encourage you to consider the foundation in your year-end giving. Turning to the scholarships, this year is an interesting year for the foundation because we have increased the amount of the scholarship from what had been customary to $1,500 to $2,000. So the award this year will be $2,000 to each of the awardees. For this year, we're pleased to announce the following RACO Scholarship Award winners, whom we ask to come forward to receive your awards. Talk to these gentlemen over here. From Thomas M. Cooley Law School, Sarah Graber, accompanied by Professor Jerry Fisher. From the University of Detroit Mercy School of Law, Daniel Conrad, accompanied by Dean Phyllis Crocker and Dean Camille Cameron. From Michigan State University College of Law, Linda Gardner, accompanied by the chairperson of the Board of Trustees, Linda Orleans. Now, the next person I expected to be here but may not be here is the Wayne State awardee here. Hearing none, let me simply announce that Wayne State will be represented, or the awardee from Wayne State is Yuyang Zhang, who would have been accompanied by Professor Eric Williams. And lastly, also honored but unable to be here today from the University of Michigan Law School is Frank Freeman and his dean, Mark D. West. Congratulations to the awardees. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ed, and congratulations to all of the deserving law students. It's now time to move forward with the presentation of the Barbara Rahm Award for Bankruptcy Excellence, and I've asked Mike Hammer, who is the chairperson of the Rahm Selection Committee, to say a few words about the award. Mike?
Thank you, Tom. Thanks, Tom. It's an honor to be able to introduce the third annual Barbara J. Rahm Award for overall bankruptcy excellence. I'm the chair of the selection committee. The selection committee includes Chief Bankruptcy Judge Philip Shefferly, Bankruptcy Judge Walter Shapiro, District Court Judge Nancy Edmonds, District Court Judge Lori Michelson, Judy O'Neill, Ralph McDowell, Julie Teicher, Leslie Berg, David Lerner, and Craig Shaner. When we came up with the award criteria, we simply looked at what made Barbara special. And it was overall excellence, civility, sophistication of practice, community involvement, bar association activity, involvement in court projects, and pro bono participation. We considered 29 written nominations, 8 that were received this year, and the 21 that were received the prior 2 years. This was an extremely strong field of nominees, both on the business side and on the consumer side, from the Northern Division and from the Southern Division. All 29 nominees are remarkable attorneys, and each one was fully deserving of consideration. The winner is a 3-time nominee, and this year had a high-profile role in the Detroit bankruptcy case that added to his already spectacular career. We are fortunate to have one of his very close friends and law partners, Ted Silvestric, to introduce him. Ted is an extremely well-known bankruptcy, workout, and front-end banking lawyer. He started his career at Honeyman, Miller, Schwartz & Cohen, where he met Steve, and they have been with Dickinson Wright together for over 10 years. Ted has an impeccable reputation. He's brilliant, a tireless worker, and a dependable and supportive colleague. Ted is a friend to many of us and a great bankruptcy and banking lawyer, and he is the perfect person to introduce the award winner.
Thank you very much for those kind words, Mike. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here today. Today I'm here to present to my good friend and partner, Steve Howell, the Barbara J. Rahm Award for Bankruptcy Excellence, or sometimes known as the Bankruptcy Lawyer of the Year Award. Each year, the Barbara J. Rahm Award for Bankruptcy Excellence is presented to the bankruptcy attorney who has exhibited the highest level of excellence in practicing bankruptcy law. As Mike has said, the selection panel looks at a number of criteria, including excellence as a bankruptcy attorney, civility, sophistication of the person's practice, community involvement, and bar association and court involvement. Steve has excelled in all of these areas. Steve has been a well-known bankruptcy practitioner in Detroit for over 30 years. He routinely works on sophisticated, difficult, and challenging cases. Steve has been recognized for his excellence by groups too numerous to mention that include Chambers, Super Lawyers, and Best Lawyers. In the last year, Steve has led the representation for the state of Michigan in the City of Detroit bankruptcy case, which, as we all know, is by far the largest municipal bankruptcy case that has ever been filed in this country. As part of that representation, Steve was actually sworn in as a Special Assistant Attorney General for the state of Michigan. Mine and Steve's offices are just a couple down from each other, so I get a chance every day to see how Steve has worked on this case. And I can say from personal observation that he has worked very hard and devoted his life and soul for the last approximate 15 months to working on this case. As we also know, Steve was a very significant factor in bringing the City of Detroit bankruptcy case to a successful conclusion. In fact, and unknown to Steve, in recognition for Steve's work on the bankruptcy case, Governor Schneider has issued a special proclamation honoring and thanking Steve for his work in bringing that bankruptcy case to a successful conclusion. But in addition to being a successful bankruptcy attorney, Steve also gives back to the community and to the profession. For many years, Steve has participated in a program with the Detroit Public Schools that partners mentors with children who need special reading assistance. Steve is also actively involved in the management at Dickinson Wright, where he serves as a practice department manager for the Banking and Finance Department, the Creditors' Rights Department, the Municipal Finance Department, and the International Department. Steve is also active in the bankruptcy mediation program. On a personal note, I'd like to say that I've known Steve Howell literally since the day I started practicing law 28 years ago. I have worked closely with Steve for all of those years and have moved law firms with him. Steve has been a great mentor to me, and I learned to practice law from Steve. I believe his peers would tell you who've worked with him that he is tough but fair. They would also tell you that Steve is honest and good to work with. When Steve tells you that something will get done, his word is good and you know that it will get done. I also believe that one of the things that sets Steve apart in his practice is that when Steve first started practicing law, he regularly represented debtors. Now he regularly represents creditors. Being on both sides of the fence and understanding the issues from both sides has allowed him to be pragmatic and realistic in finding creative and realistic solutions to difficult restructuring issues. For all these reasons, it is my distinct honor and great privilege to present the Barbara J. Rahm Award for Bankruptcy Excellence to Stephen G. Howell, a great friend, a great partner, and a great bankruptcy lawyer. Steve, please come forward to accept your award. I would also like to present to you a special proclamation from the Governor of the State of Michigan, Rick Schneider, for your tireless work in the City of Detroit bankruptcy case.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, thank you. I'll start out by saying that my family has the over-under going on the 5 minutes because they have always learned that I can't say hello in less than 5 minutes, but I will do my best. First of all, thank you, Ted, and happy birthday. I'd just like to say that I'm so honored when you see the panel and you've heard the names of the panelists, how much that means to me to be honored by the people that I have worked with for the last 36 years of my life. And I'm honored, I'm privileged to work with them. I think that the bankruptcy bar is one of the finest groups of lawyers around, and I will stack it up against anybody. I'm proud to be a part of that community. I'm particularly honored to be given this award today, but I just am proud to be in the group of bankruptcy lawyers that practice in Michigan and that are here today. I would also like to say that I've always loved what I do, and it has been a privilege to be able to do it with the people here. It has been a privilege to do it with clients that I have here today that have become friends of mine from various locations. People I have come to know in the last 15 months by working on the state case who I think the world of and exemplify public service. Mike Adola, Chief Counsel of the Governor, Valerie Brader, Deputy Counsel of the Governor, and Senior Policy Advisor, and Matthew Schneider, Chief Legal Counsel to Bill Schuette. I've been privileged to work with them. They are excellent lawyers and terrific people, and that's been a thrill for me. And to be a part of the bankruptcy community that has had the privilege of spending the last 15 months working on the City of Detroit case and being in almost every single hearing that has occurred. The work that has been done by Judge Rhodes, Judge Rosen, Gene Dreiker, and the other mediators is phenomenal. It makes all of us proud to be an attorney here in this community, and so I would just say that the work that they've done is amazing. I've had the privilege over a number of years. I guess I can't hold a job. I've moved from a few places, starting my career at a firm that some may remember as August Thompson Sharon Miller. Learned a lot there, survived that experience. I spent 20 years at Honigman Miller before joining Dickinson Wright, both excellent firms with terrific lawyers. I'm proud to be a part of Dickinson Wright and have been for almost 11 years, and it's a great firm to be a part of. I'm honored to be named, excuse me, with the Barbara Rama Award. Barbara Rama was an excellent lawyer that I also practiced throughout my career with, and I'm proud to be associated with the award, and I'm proud to follow Judy O'Neill and David Allard. Finally, I'd just like to say that none of this could be possible without my family. I should say before I say that, my secretary, who has put up with me for 26 years, almost 27, and my wife pointed out to me as I came down here that she has probably spent more time with me than my wife has. But she has been a wonderful person to have work with, and she's helped me so much over the years. And then finally, my family. Whatever success I have is due in large part to my wife's support and love through all these years. My children, who I'm very proud of. Griffin, Shannon, I love you both. Thanks for your patience and your support. Thank you.
Congratulations, Steve, on your well-deserved award. With that, we will take a short lunch break and begin the Historical Society program after lunch. Thank you. I hope everybody had an opportunity to enjoy lunch. Before we get started with the Historical Society program, our Wayne State Rakow Scholarship recipient is here. Ed Cronk will confer the award.
I'm delighted that our Wayne recipient has arrived. So let me introduce Sophie Zhang, the Wayne recipient, who is accompanied by Professor Eric Williams. Sophie, would you come up right here, please? Congratulations. Thanks, Tom.
Congratulations. It's now time for the Historical Society for the Eastern District of Michigan's annual meeting. Many of you know Brian Figgett well. Brian is our Executive Director at the Federal Bar Association. He also serves as President of the Historical Society for the Eastern District of Michigan. He's got some brief business to conduct as President, and then he will introduce our keynote speaker. Please join me in a round of applause for Brian Figgett.
For a long time, the Court Historical Society and the chapter have had a very close working relationship and partnership that makes it only fitting that I serve with two hats or more. By way of the business, it's very brief. One is to announce that if you're looking for the website for the Court Historical Society, it is now a drop-down part of the menu for the Federal Bar Association's website at fbamich.org, and the whole thing's, both of them are about to get a nice facelift, but you can, all the pages that you've gotten used to at the Court Historical Society are still viewable. Second thing is on the subject of dues. For many years, dues were completely complimentary off of your membership in the Federal Bar Association. Unfortunately, finances being what they are, we had to discontinue that this year, but association members will still get membership in the Court Historical Society as a $10 checkoff on their membership dues. So I encourage everyone to please do that so that we can continue to do programming for the Court Historical Society. Membership is otherwise $25, so you get a bargain from having been a Federal Bar member. And if you are not a Federal Bar member, join so you can join. Next, the most pleasurable piece of business that I have is to introduce Justice Marilyn Kelly, who is the keynote speaker, and a nice piece was written about her in your program, which I'm sure you would rather read than hear me speak, because the more I speak, the less she gets to. So if anybody doesn't know who Justice Kelly is, please raise your hand. Okay, hearing none, I'll hand the dais over.
Thank you, Mr. Figgett, for your kind introduction. My thanks also to the members of the Historical Society and to Thomas Scheer and the Federal Bar Association for giving me this exceptional opportunity to reflect on the lives and contributions of Justice Patricia Boyle and Cornelia Kennedy. I was privileged to know both of these outstanding judges, these giants in our legal world, who distinguished themselves for their superior legal knowledge and skills, each famous for the firsts she accomplished. My memories of them are so vivid and their impact on me is so strong that as I speak of them, I picture them still as very much alive and among us. Many of you who knew them may find you join me in this perception. Cornelia Kennedy, the First Lady of the Michigan Judiciary, the first woman ever to sit on the federal bench in Michigan, the first in her class at the University of Michigan Law School, the first woman to serve as a law clerk at the Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, the first woman to become a Chief Justice of any United States District Court, the first woman director of the Detroit Bar Association, the first woman member of the Judiciary Conference of the United States, and chairperson of the National Conference of the Federal Trial Judges, the first woman chair of the negligence section of the State Bar of Michigan, and chair of the Wayne County Committee on Character and Fitness for the State Bar. Judge Kennedy presided over the first female three-judge panel to sit as an appellate court in the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. She and her sister, Margaret Schaefer, were the first sister judges in the United States. Of course, Judge Kennedy had a number of near misses, most notable when she nearly became the first woman justice of the United States Supreme Court. You'll recall that she was edged out narrowly by Sandra Day O'Connor, who has described Judge Kennedy as a shining example to women across the nation in every aspect. Justice O'Connor wrote about her, Judge Kennedy's work on the bench has been marked by excellent analysis overlaid by common sense. Her volunteer service has spanned every aspect of the legal services. She's been a wife and a mother and a friend and mentor to countless young lawyers, both male and female. Justice O'Connor added, Judge Kennedy has been a most impressive model for me for a very long time. She is deserving of the highest tribute for her splendid service on the bench for more than 30 years. I could not agree more with the entirety of Justice O'Connor's remarks. Certainly, Cornelia Kennedy was a most impressive role model for me. It was she who swore me into the Eastern District Court. This memorable event occurred in 1971 in a private ceremony late one afternoon, immediately after I was admitted to the State Bar of Michigan. My employer at the time asked Judge Kennedy to swear me in so he could send me in next day before a different judge in federal court. He made no provision for a ceremony with a photographer, family members, and other invited guests. And at the time, I failed to perceive that there was anything unusual about that. But no doubt Judge Kennedy did. Realizing that no one but me and my employer was present, she asked us into her chambers and conducted the ceremony there. I think the only other person present was her 9-year-old son, who sat quietly on a couch and who was no doubt waiting for his mother to take him home. But such was Judge Kennedy's patience, warmth, and dignity, and so complete was the kind attention she bestowed on me that I did not regret there being no friends present and no photos to commemorate the event. I went away thrilled with her kindness, my mind etched with an indelible memory of that private, special moment with her. I've carried this memory ever since as a lasting lesson about how a judge should comport herself, both inside and outside the courtroom. During the subsequent years when I appeared before her in court, and when during professional activities I had occasion to chat with her, Judge Kennedy continued to inspire me with her integrity, her superb judicial temperament, and of course, her superior intellect and knowledge of the law. I had the opportunity to get to know Judge Kennedy also through my friendship with her sister, Judge Margaret Schaefer of the 47th District Court in Farmington Hills. Judge Schaefer reached out to me when I ran for the Court of Appeals in 1988 and helped me with my election, garnering many votes for me among her constituents. This was particularly helpful to me because many of them were Republicans, like she and Judge Kennedy, whereas I'm a Democrat. Judge Kennedy was not directly involved in these activities, but she was present, for example, at Judge Schaefer's home several times when I was invited, and I learned how closely knit the family members were and how similar the sisters were in intellectual quality and temperament, and how profound an influence their father had had on them. Judge Kennedy's mother, Mary, died when Cornelia was 9 years old. Her father, Elmer Grossema, an accomplished lawyer, raised his daughters alone after his wife's death and instilled in them a deep love of the law. Margaret Schaefer had great affection for her home in Farmington Hills and told me her father had purchased the property because it reminded him so of the countryside he grew up in while in Idaho. My last close association with Judge Kennedy occurred while I sat on the Michigan Supreme Court and she was still on the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals. We judged a moot court competition together at Michigan State University. I drove Judge Kennedy back and forth from Detroit, and we discussed our life and experiences on the bench. Here was the same dignified, no-nonsense, warm individual who had sworn me into the federal court more than 20 years before. We spoke of many people and things, and what I remember most was how devoted Judge Kennedy was to her law clerks, how much she enjoyed working with them to resolve legal questions. She had an almost motherly interest in them, having lunch with them every day and maintaining a newsletter in which she kept track of their progress after their clerkships ended. I remember thinking, here I am, 24 years on the bench, and I continue to learn from this woman. Judge John Fikens was right when he described her as a treasure in our federal judiciary. Let me pass now on to a few reflections about Justice Patricia Boyle. Justice Boyle was a remarkable woman who created her own distinctive firsts in Michigan's legal world. She graduated first in her law school class at Wayne State University. Not only was she first, she was the only woman in the class, and at the time, she had 3 small children at home. Later, she became the first and only female district court judge to resign in order to be appointed to the Michigan Supreme Court. One can only marvel at her courage in leaving a lifetime appointment to a federal court to face what would inevitably be contested contests in order to retain her seat on a state court. Like Judge Kennedy, Justice Boyle had at least one important near miss. She was very nearly appointed the first female Attorney General of the United States, an honor that went, as you know, to Janet Reno, but only after Justice Boyle decided not to pursue the appointment. In all, Patty Boyle, we all knew her as Patty, served 23 years on the bench at the Recorder's Court, the Federal District Court, and the Michigan Supreme Court. She made no secret of the fact that the appellate bench was her favorite. At this annual luncheon in 1998, Justice Boyle reflected on her career in the Federal District Court, saying, "For 5 years, I worked 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours a day, and so did my fellow judges. Charles Kennedy, Cornelia Kennedy's husband, used to do his daily walk, pacing the back hallway that connected Cornelia's chamber to mine, and more than once he told my husband, who was waiting for me, 'She works too hard.' They all work too hard." The price of such enormous effort, Patty concluded, was isolation from our families and from each other. I believe her preference for the appellate court sprang also from her scholarly disposition. Justice Boyle welcomed difficult legal issues and enjoyed the time an appellate judge is given to dig into the law, to analyze problems, and to write thoughtful legal opinions. She also welcomed the opportunity a Supreme Court justice enjoys to shape the law. And because her background was as a prosecuting attorney, she particularly relished the opportunity to influence the criminal law in Michigan, an objective she clearly accomplished. I served with Justice Boyle on the Supreme Court from 1997 until the end of 1998 when she retired. Before that, I knew her while I served on the Court of Appeals from 1989 until 1997. She was certainly a role model for me then and earlier during the 17 years I practiced law, I'll always remember her speaking to the Women Lawyers Association of Michigan and other groups, articulate, principled, and with a wonderful homey warmth and a delightful sense of humor. By way of example about that humor, Patty loved to tell how when she first got to the Supreme Court, she once had worked late into the night to prepare for a scheduled meeting with the justices, only to arrive the next day to find the meeting room empty. She located the court bailiff and inquired where the justices were meeting. He admitted, somewhat sheepishly, that they had decided to reschedule the meeting to another day in order to enjoy an afternoon of golf. Since Patty did not golf, she was not invited. Well, Patty would tell us, the next time the justices met, I sent them my votes along with a note saying, I regret I will be unable to make the meeting because I have a Tupperware party. And that was the last time, she concluded triumphantly, that the justices played golf on a meeting day. Although she said she never regretted leaving the federal bench, Justice Boyle certainly had good memories of the federal bench that she described here, saying, "The good memories caused my eyes to fill with tears as I cleaned out my office at 500 Woodward and packed the Bible inscribed October 10, 1978, Patricia J. Boyle, on which I'd placed my hand when Judge Kennedy administered the oath. It's the memory of Martha Griffiths, my first political mentor, who spoke at that ceremony, as she had when I became a Recorder's Court judge, and as she would when I joined the Michigan Supreme Court. It's the memory of my federal court staff, who remain a part of my extended family. We are bonded by sharing in the human drama that is the courtroom experience. It is wonderment for the humanity, diligence, and decency of the lawyers who I would never have known had I not been in the federal court, and of the judges who were my comrades in arms. And it is my gratitude to Judge Fikens, who guided me through troubled times and whom I will always love. Some years ago, Patty told us, I read Justice Rehnquist's observation, "When I was young, I exchanged time for success like a profligate. As we become older, it becomes harder and harder to reverse the process." In 5 years on the federal court, Patty wrote, I began the process that brought me to the moments when I accepted with peace and expectation the limits of my ambition, and that all of it pales next to Sunday morning at our kitchen table with a cup of freshly brewed coffee, the New York Times, and Terry. Certainly, Terry Boyle was the love of her life. He had a tremendous influence on her. When asked in an interview after she retired to provide a final thought on what message she would like to leave history, she said, "My husband, without whose courage and intellectual support and endless re-education of me politically, I would have slipped into conservatism. But he never allowed it, the flaming Irishman. We've had a wonderful ride together, and I'm deeply grateful to everyone who's made it possible for me, particularly to him." I understand that this year marks the 17th time that the CHS has combined its annual meeting with the Ray Cow Luncheon. It's the first such meeting since the passing of these two giants in the history of the district court that I've discussed, Judge Cornelia Kennedy and Justice Patricia Boyle, the first and second women, respectively, who served on the Eastern District Federal Bench, and the first and second, respectively, who spoke at a combined CHR Ray Cow luncheon, 1998 and 1999. I know you join me in saluting them this afternoon. Thank you.
One more round of applause for Justice Kelly. Those were very thoughtful remarks. Just a few brief announcements before we adjourn today. First, I want to thank our program chair, Sarah Sahu, and our executive director, Brian Figgett, for helping to put on this program today. Very well done. Secondly, I would like to invite everyone to the Federal Bar Association's holiday party, which will occur on December 4th here at the Book Cadillac. You can sign up on our website. Third, we have a very busy December and January at the Federal Bar Association in terms of programming, so please check our website for our upcoming programs. And last but not least, our next Federal Bar Luncheon will be the McCree Luncheon here in this room on February 26th, and Kevin Orr will be our speaker, so we hope to see you all there. Thank you all for coming, and we are adjourned.